Stephen Warner, the amazing, inimitable Stephen Warner on the Barton organ. Welcome to the Penny Stamps Distinguished Speaker Series. My name is Christina Hamilton, the series director. Today, we are thrilled to be coming to you from the 57th Ann Arbor Film Festival. Yeah, that's a lot of years, people. Presenting boundary-breaking art collective Meow Wolf. A big thank you to the Ann Arbor Film Festival for their collaboration and support in this endeavor, and a special welcome to all you film festival goers. For any newcomers that are here that have no idea what the Penny Stamps is and they thought they were at the film festival, you still are, it's okay. We're operating in multiple universes right now. A little context, the Penny Stamp series is a program of the Stamp School of Art and Design. It looks to present creators and innovators who transcend the prescribed confines of the status quo. The series takes place here at the Michigan Theater every Thursday, and it's always free for the public. So if you're from the area and you want to join us more often, grab a brochure on your way out and come next Thursday. We'll be here. This week, as part of the Film Festival celebration, we are participating as a partner with special screenings, exhibitions, and performances beyond this event today through Off the Screen, which includes many satellite locations, and you should walk around in the good weather. So take a look. There's a map in the back of your Film Festival catalog, and there's all kinds of stuff from the Ann Arbor Arts Center, which you should definitely not miss. All you students in this audience, get down there. There's some incredible installations there. Yeah, take a walk about. And students, do engage with the festival. It can do a lot for you. You know, challenge yourself. Most importantly, it will free your mind. The festival has been freeing minds here since 1963, giving us the temperature and tenor of this moment in time. I think the festival this year has been doing an excellent job of that. So engage this legacy, enter the psychogeography that it is, and the Ann Arbor Film Festival will be here for you. It was born out of the art school, no less. It is a jewel in the crown of the city of Ann Arbor as well. It is certainly a queen of the creative spirit, so get inspired, and long may she reign. Yeah. It's such a good deal. We are going to have a Q&A here, time allowing, at the end of this. You'll see that there are microphones on stands here at the end of these two aisles, so folks with questions at the end can line up. And now just a little background on our guests today before we get going. Meow Wolf, what is it? It's an artist collective based in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which creates immersive and interactive experiences to transport audiences into fantastic realms of story and exploration through art installations, video, music production, and extended reality content. A friend described it to me the first time I heard about it as an immersive, interactive jungle gym story with music. The lead up to bringing Meow Wolf here today was some years in thought process. The series, or the collective first hit my radar, actually, it was Ian Line, who is the video producer for the stamp series here, was traveling. I got a message from him in Santa Fe with a link to Meow Wolf saying, I went here, mind-blowing, amazing, you may want to look into this, maybe make a trip out. I highly recommend the experience. I'm going to check it out again. And very quickly after that, Film Festival director Leslie Raymond also had traveled out to Santa Fe and experienced Meow Wolf and raved about it. So it's been on the radar, and we've been checking out what they've been doing. I think there's an interesting synergy as well here in the story with sort of the origin story of the Ann Arbor Film Festival, perhaps not like the meteoric rise of a penniless anarchic art collective, but the beginnings of something as an outsider. Ann Arbor Film Festival, which was purposefully established as an alternative to the coastal beacons of taste-making, as George R.R. would say, in New York and San Francisco and LA, where instead of handing down directives on whose work is worthy, the Ann Arbor Film Festival was created to allow a look into the voices of the moment through a democratized system of collective curation. So this was a very new concept in 1963, and here we are today. And Meow Wolf found itself Similarly, challenged as an outsider, not let into an art world of tastemakers, and even now with their success, they continue to take heat as they are challenging the status quo and stretching the possible. We have two of the collective members here today with us to talk about all of this and more. We have Morgan Capps, who's a filmmaker who works in documentary storytelling. She's covered the lives of coal miners in Appalachia to Native American food movements. And then she moved to Santa Fe in 2015 and fell in love with the motley crew at Meow Wolf and joined the team. And she also then became the co-director of the collective's documentary film, Meow Wolf Origin Story. Also here today, Chris Cloud. Chris Cloud is an artist, a curator, a cultural developer, former fixture in Minneapolis's creative milieu, and now marketing director at Meow Wolf. He was the co-founder of MPLS.TV, an online do-it-yourself video network, MPLS Zine, a submissions-based digital publication, and Pizza Camp. Before we bring Chris and Morgan out, we'll start with by showing the trailer of the documentary Meow Wolf Origin Story. This is also playing in its entirety tomorrow evening as the midnight movie at the State Theater, just up the street. So take a look.
Doesn't look like much right now. As you walk down the hallway, you'll turn the corner. Eventually, you'll open up the refrigerator, and you'll wind up in another world.
How would you describe Meow Wolf, and how do you fit into the art scene?
Meow Wolf is a venue for artists who felt like they were on the outside of the art market in Santa Fe looking in.
The scene for artists who are trying to do something different or weird just didn't really exist.
We were Santa Fe's orphans of neglect.
We don't know what we're doing, and we don't care.
It's time for us to just be an agitator.
The art world needs to get shaken up a little bit.
We didn't want rules. We didn't want hierarchy. We had no money. We started pulling stuff out of dumpsters.
I was zip tying trash together and fixing it to the wall.
What kind of people is this going to draw? All the types of weirdos. All the good and bad weirdos.
For us, it was just this creative explosion. Are we creating something that people are actually going to like? Not a single person got paid.
We did this for years. There were 10 of us living in one tiny little room because all the money's going to the art. There's not even much money for that.
I mean, it was insane. It was too much.
How long can I do this for?
How can we make Meow Wolf sustainable?
We need a building. We need millions of dollars. Where are we gonna get that?
The idea of the person that could buy this for us being George Martin was really silly.
It was please take a chance on us. Nobody else is going to.
Okay, I'll buy the bowling alley. It's incredible. Other dimensions, other times, a secret story. He was just pushing all my buttons.
It was just burning down some old system and having a hyper phoenix of what art can be rising out of the ashes.
Not only is this crazy, but it's possible.
We have to support those who feel like they're on the outside looking in, because that's how we were. That's where this is a success or a failure.
Please welcome Morgan Capps and Chris Cloud.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
This is so cool to be standing here on this stage in front of this honestly painfully enormous audience. Such an honor. Cloud and I are two members of a massive art collective called Meow Wolf. Oh, I'm supposed to click the clicker again. You're gonna see how we are a little dynamic duo up here.
We really are. Yeah, so we're a Santa Fe-based art and entertainment group. There's 400 of us, which is insane because it really started off as like a bunch of people digging through trash. We'll talk about that later. But now we're here representing the company. We're a company now. We're a B Corp, which is awesome. We're a public benefit corporation, so we give back to the community when we can. But there's a sort of story that we started off with of kind of saying F you to the art world in Santa Fe, and then kind of
I think we can say fuck, right?
Yeah.
I think we can say that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
So we're saying fuck you to the establishment.
Yeah, the co-founders of Meow Wolf said fuck you to the Santa Fe art establishment, and we're still sort of having that middle flag flying, the middle finger flag flying up in the air. We're rebellious in spirit, and so, next slide. There's a lot of us. There's a lot of us out here, and so we're two of many. It's so crazy too because the artist isn't just visual artists. It's filmmakers and marketers and storytellers and animators and illustrators and concept artists, and I mean it's everywhere you go amongst the company. There's art being made, and I can honestly say that I've never worked at such a place that embraced art and creativity and collaboration. And really let ideas come to life.
So, I don't know, what's cool is that this audience is probably full of people with a variety of backgrounds of knowledge about what Meow Wolf is. And I've been a part of the collective for almost 4 years now. I started as a volunteer during the building of their first permanent exhibition, the House of Eternal Return. I was moving out to Santa Fe for about like a 5-month contract to work on another film, had never been there, didn't know a soul, and as soon as I got there, there's not that many young people. It's a small town, 70.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, that's a whole other story. I quickly heard about this thing that was happening in town where this group called Meow Wolf was building a psychedelic Disneyland. And so I started volunteering while they were building this exhibition that has generated enormous unexpected success for them, and started shooting behind the scenes along the way as helping with whatever was happening. And then here we are. What has it been, 3 years later?
Yeah.
2 years later? Oh, he wants the clicker.
Oh, well, I just want to say, we have this awesome illustration about this beast.
You should just hold the clicker, to be honest.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But there's this beast, and Meow Wolf is this beast, and it's hard to articulate, but it's a creative energy that swallows us whole. And what Morgan was talking about is her coming down to Santa Fe for a film project, and then being swallowed up by this beast. I was sort of in the same vein, so Christina mentioned that I started this MPLS.TV. I worked with a filmmaker who had lived in Santa Fe for a little bit. Somehow I got an email randomly, like the end of 2015, they were like, hey, we need some videos for this TV screen in this house. Do you want to put your videos in there? We're like, yeah, why not? Here's some videos. And then fast forward to just last year, they were looking for a marketing director, and I was like, oh, I know how to do that. I could maybe rep Meow Wolf. And then here I am a year later on this stage with a wonderful filmmaker talking about how we are as a company.
Oh, it's like this. It's like the talking stick is how it's going to work for us tonight. So we talk a lot in the film. So first of all, yes, I directed the documentary Meow Wolf Origin Story with my incredible directing partner Joanne Spitz-Miller, and our even more incredible editor Alessandra Dobrin-Kolsa. Meow Wolf is a collective, right? So, and we're going to go into all of that, but collaboration being at the heart of what we do. It takes a lot to be a part of this thing. And again, the longer I've been a part of Meow Wolf, the question that gets asked immediately, of course, is like, what is Meow Wolf? And for me, that question gets even more difficult to answer every day because it's so many things, personally, socially, in the art world, in the business world. This entity, this organism is blowing up. It's not just blowing up the lives of the people who are involved with it, but the people who experience it. And it is this thing that is made up of a lot of people and a lot of collaboration. And
there's a tension between art and business that is really co-founded the fact that, we've been able to, build something that people love to come to, and we're able to, really make a business out of it.
And I think we can go ahead and acknowledge Cloud and I love each other, but we're great representatives of Meow Wolf in that we have had great conflict even in just creating this presentation for you guys, because a lot of Meow Wolf is rooted in a million different philosophies and a million different people's dreams and expectations. It absorbs, it's this thing that it feeds off of our dreams and imaginations and failures and successes, and it's always hungry for more.
Well, I mean, there's a tension between art and business.
Which
is
our next slide.
Next slide. You know, it's fascinating that we're both here because, you know, I represent sort of the brand in a way and thinking about how we exist out to the world and our messaging and how we talk about things. And Morgan is a filmmaker, is really making like this beautiful artworks all the time, you know, films like the one you might see on Friday night. And it's sort
we'll
of
see you guys. First and foremost, please go see the movie. I'm not normally a self-plugger, but if you're here tonight, you gotta see the film.
Yeah. And it's sort of an interesting tension because as we were building this presentation, it was sort of, you know, I'm thinking of it like, oh, how can we tell the stories of our artists or stories of our participants? And, you know, Morgan sometimes will look at me and be like, this is too markety. I don't know if I like it like this.
What are we selling these people right now? We're not selling anything. Just kidding. But here's the thing, art and business. It's and business, not versus business, because the reason that we're here is because this small art collective that was just a bunch of scrappy kids, a lot of who didn't even want to go to college, but wanted to be making things and making art, came together and said, okay, there's nothing here for us. Well, then let's make our own thing. Fuck everyone else.
Well, it's all about disruption.
It's all about disruption. And so I think that's sort of the foundation of this thing, right? So, you know, in a sense, we understand that they've had incredible financial success, Meow Wolf, but it started with 10 people who were just like these young kids living in Santa Fe wanting to make art, and Santa Fe itself is, why don't I just let this clip from the film tell you? So we're gonna be showing a few clips from the film, not too many, because you gotta go see it. But I think it can illustrate a little bit more artistically where I'm coming from.
Santa Fe, New Mexico, to me, is the reason for Meow Wolf. You have this small town, about 70,000 people, over 300 galleries, the third largest art market in the country.
Everything is geared towards tourists and what you'd consider like high-end art.
As cosmopolitan as it is, it's like, well, this is a safe form of art. The scene for like young, emerging artists who are trying to do something different or weird just didn't really exist.
They're making a wanted poster for the Serpentine Scourge.
God, the studio and gallery arts world is a bunch of markety bullshit.
So, crazy, right? Now we're gonna go fast, because you know what? A lot happens from this moment, which is before 2008, where these kids come together. So what happens after this point in Santa Fe, this group of about 10 people come together, they decide to go in on a warehouse, $70 a month, and just do what they wanna do because there's not a space there, because this huge art market isn't allowing that opportunity for them. And so they have the audacity to just, regardless of knowing what's gonna happen, they start their first show, which is Meowzors. With the 10 of them come together, they rent a space, and Meowzors is the first show that they open. It opens February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2008. And it starts with this empty salon that they rented as their first space, and they just started painting the walls, and they were done with that in a week, completely covered the walls, so they started to build the paintings out of the walls into the room. And it was just sort of this liberating, creative moment where there were no expectations. They didn't know who the audience was, but they knew what their impulses were, what they wanted to experiment with, and they just kind of went there. And then, you know, surprisingly, there was a lot of interest from the community. The community started to pay attention, and then the collective was really born. And we're about to show you a clip from the film where it's their first real show that is exploring this immersive narrative storytelling and kind of informs the aesthetic that leads us to now and all the crazy stuff you're gonna see.
The show grew out of the materials we could find.
For Biome, I created this really weird assemblage. I basically like sat in a pile of trash for a month and was like zip tying trash together and fixing it to the wall.
Everybody's maximalist, going to town on every single square inch of the room.
Maximalism is way more stuff than you think is gonna actually be pleasing. I'm not much of a visual artist, you know, I've never really have been. But I'm like looking at all this stuff and realizing like, okay, if we're creating a world, then who inhabits that world?
We wanted to do something space cult, future sci-fi style. There was a mythology and there was pictures of the two like original people who formed this colony.
Narrative is access point for people who don't feel welcome in art galleries and museums to experience the work.
I made this fishbowl with a creature inside of it, and the creature's name is Buggy. I ended up filling the fishbowl with clear jello. Everyone goes up to the fishbowl and like touches it, and these like crazy like petri dish style organisms started to grow. So that was definitely a first time of being like, I'm gonna make art that's in an environment that people are going to interact with. And in the end, I actually liked that because it became part of the piece. You know, I wanted to make this kind of like fucked up organism, but what it actually turned into was even more fucked up. Wow.
Music video. That sounds like one.
Those first handful of shows were messy. You know, for us, it was just this creative explosion.
It was just like burning down some kind of old system and having like a hyper phoenix of what art can be rising out of the ashes.
We moved into this warehouse space. We kind of needed like a trashier building that we could trash even more.
How did you find my secret lair?
We just kind of all did whatever we wanted to do.
Disruption. I think we already talked about that. So we wanted to show this clip because it really shows sort of the foundations of what were formed for this collective and their immersive storytelling, right? It goes beyond just these items and all of these people working together in a maximalist way. It's about the participants and what they can get out of it by interacting. I'm gonna let Chris go.
Well, and this slide here is from the Do Return, a 2011 project. It gets highlighted in the film, and it was sort of their first big foray. They actually got it into the Center of Contemporary Arts in New Mexico, and they were able to build this 7,000 square foot ship where you can actually walk inside, and there was a deep narrative where people were able to sort of explore the story. And this is actually the birth of the tech team, which is behind a lot of the tech at Meow Wolf.
So during these early days, as you heard in the clip, Meow Wolf, this group, which at this point is around 20 to 30 people, continue building these shows, which are really about giving spaces within their own warehouse to different artists and kind of merging their work together, because for one, they just wanted to be together. There was no intention behind this where it was like, oh, this is gonna change the world. This is gonna turn into this multi-million-dollar company. It was more like they needed each other to be able to afford the space to make art. And then what came of that collaboration was something extraordinarily magical. There's a number of shows, which I hope you guys will all come see the film and hear the details of each not each show, but a lot of the shows that they did. And I think this represents a lot of what is still core to Meow Wolf, which is this theme of the chaos versus the order. The way that this thing came to be was all of these people wanting something similar, not having space, and instead sort of making it together. But as it continues, right, as they get a little bit of success, they get an audience, we start to realize the ways in which just this chaotic work together in every way system isn't necessarily leading to the best work that we can all make. But it's a necessity, like the best work that we can make is together. So there's a thing that still kind of pushes this whole thing forward, which I think we represent in like the marketing and like storytelling side of it, is there's a lot of
tension.
Yeah, tensions and love. Like it's more like family, I think, in a lot of ways than friends and coworkers, because it's difficult if you want to sacrifice a part of your own artistic ego to contribute to something that is greater than your individual self, that is greater than your individual being or ability as a creator. And that's a hard thing to see sometimes, but I think that's what's special about what has continued to evolve from this. And so this is a clip from the film.
Yeah, and I also think that as we got bigger, we started to need more structure and thinking about, well, how do we do meetings and how do we keep track of things and how do we become organized? And that's something that I feel like, as Morgan alluded to, we're still struggling with today. So we're going to show this clip from the film.
Chaos!
There's always been like this good, productive, I think, tension between the chaos and the order.
Catastrophe!
A lot of people in the group kind of thrive on chaos.
I brought an agenda for the first time to a meeting, and I think it was Quinn, or it might have been Matt, who literally crumpled it up and like threw it on the floor, because that looked too much like the corporate world or something.
We didn't want rules, we didn't want hierarchy, and that presented a lot of problems.
Total annihilation.
We all had to fight for our ideas and projects, and sometimes that's like literal fighting.
I mean, so from the chaos came, these creative values, and it's something that we as a collective, as a company, were really resistant to. We really didn't want to label the work that we do or how we describe it, but ultimately, as we started to look back at all the shows that we did and the shows that we were working on, we started to realize there's these 6 kind of main tenets. The first, if you can't tell, is our work is very collaborative. So lots of people adding on top of things, and as Morgan also alluded to, of like letting go of your ideas and letting other ideas rise. And this is something that's happening to this day at the company. We work on projects where there's 20, 30 people involved, from animators to writers to the graphic design team. We are very collaborative in nature. Kaleidoscopic is another tenet in creative value for us. And when people think of kaleidoscopic, they think about like multicolored, but the way we picture it is multifaceted. The fact that things can be layered, things can be playful. So in this space from the House of Eternal Return, these mushrooms on this side here are actually playable musical instruments. And so I think that when we think about our art and we think about the stories we tell, we think about how we can build layers upon layers and layers. Maximal. So we're very maximal in nature. I'm sure you can tell. This presentation is very maximal. We have about 20 minutes of video, and we have another.
And we're talking over each other constantly.
We're talking over it all the time. But like in our way, maximal too is about how can we fit ideas into a space. So looking at a blank room or a blank exhibit or a blank project, how can we layer upon layer? It goes back to that kaleidoscopic. Mind-bending. And a lot of people, I see almost every social media mention of Meow Wolf, and I see a lot of times people say, my mind was blown. That was mind-blowing, but at Meow Wolf, we like to think about it as mind-bending. When your mind's blown, it's gone. It's not there anymore. But when your mind's bent, or when you go through a mind-bending experience, it's slightly altered. You think differently, you feel differently. So we really think about mind-bending in a lot of art that we do. Unexpected. So, you know, when this dryer is closed, it looks like a normal dryer. This is from our exhibit down in Santa Fe. And when you open it, it's a portal to a new world. And I think, you know, going beyond just the exhibit, we want to be unexpected as a company and the creative projects that we do. You know, we want to, when I was having dinner before I joined Meow Wolf, we were talking about a hot sauce. And Vince, the CEO, was like, hey, if Meow Wolf wants to do a hot sauce, we should do a hot sauce. And it should be the best hot sauce ever, and no one would expect it, but that's what we do, we're unexpected. And that's something that has stuck with me in all the projects that we work on. All ages. And so this is Miriam Castor. She was celebrating her 100th birthday last summer at Meow Wolf. I think these are her great-great-grandkids. There was like about 4 generations there last summer. I think when we think about all ages, it's not just like, oh, well, it's for 5-year-olds or 7-year-olds. We think about it about bringing out the child in the adult, but also the inverse of bringing out the adult in the child and thinking critically about spaces and letting people sort of make decisions and having choice and agency and discovery. So those are our creative values. So it all kind of feeds into this art of immersive. And, you know, I will just have to say it, I'll say this like a few more times, we are artists, we make art. There's a lot of people who like to come at us and say, that's not art, that's just entertainment. That's not something that should be in an art gallery. And, you know, ultimately we don't care, but at the end of the day, we are putting out something that we deeply feel is art. And I think our medium is immersive.
Yeah, and I think sort of this when we talk about immersive art, I always like to relate it to the beginning of how this came to be, right? And collaboration being, I just want to hit home that again, has been such a moving experience for me in terms of being a part of the group. Making this film, I worked with an incredible directing partner and an editor, and we don't always necessarily, depending on our art forms or however we're in the world, we don't get the opportunity to create together. And I think it's a learned skill, but what I really appreciate about being a part of this group is how powerful that collaboration can be in expanding your own creative prowess, in expanding your own perception of what you can imagine for yourself. And in addition to that, with immersive art, you know, it starts with this defiance, right? This fuck you, there's no place for me in my work, nobody wants to see it because it's not gonna sell to anybody, but I still need to make it. We all have this sort of, a lot of us probably in this room have this impulse, this beast inside of us that we have something that we need to create to get out there. And so that sort of not having to sacrifice, but allowing for that to be true, is a part of what this immersive storytelling, what hits home with all of us, is that it's for everyone, right? It's not for, you know, just art students or people from the art world. It's for anyone to come and imagine a new space and a new world. And so, you know, I hope, again, I'll just reiterate, I hope you all will see the film. We're about to show you a little bit of a lengthy clip. This group goes through so much to get to this point, but I really love how it sort of encapsulates the spirit of, fuck you, we're trying this anyway, and it's really important that we do. Even if it doesn't work, we have to try. And as creators, I think that's what's changed me the most about being a part of this collective, is that it actually is possible, and that's not, you know, like some sort of platitude, that it can be real.
Several of us were thinking about how can we make Meow Wolf sustainable?
We need a building. We need like probably millions of dollars. Like, where are we gonna get that?
There's seemingly insurmountable odds against us. but let's just pretend like it's actually going to happen. Let's start designing the project.
We were throwing out concepts, writing stuff down on Post-it notes and putting them on the wall.
The idea came into my head about a house that you enter, and there's secret passageways that lead into other dimensions.
Here is a house, and an event has happened that has broken time and space to the extent that portals have opened up throughout the house, which will now lead to these fantastic environments.
Everybody just went completely nuts with concepts like this what, oh, it's got to be a laundry room. It's got to be, okay, so a laundry room jungle that has fish in it with gelatin like pouring out of this thing and with like ants, but there's ants like tunneling inside. Like it was just so nuts. Like it seems really insane, but like if this happens, it could be one of the most crazy things that like anybody's seen.
Dream, baby, dream. Dream, baby, dream.
I had looked at the bowling alley and I was like, holy fuck, this building is huge. 33,000 square feet, and it was just like, oh my God. And I had all these memories of the bowling alley growing up here, just like going to birthday parties and getting grilled cheese sandwiches and bowling.
It was for sale, and we needed someone to buy it for us. So what we did is we made a list of everyone that we knew that we thought would have enough money and be interested.
And Vince like threw out George R.R. Martin.
Oh, dream baby, dream baby, dream baby, dream baby.
George lives in Santa Fe and happened to like meet Vince once.
Most of us are huge Game of Thrones fans, so the idea of the person that we are closest to that could really buy this building for us being George Martin was really silly.
It was all joking, at least I thought, but Vince was actually really pushing for it.
And yeah, there are huge question marks for this project, and we're trying to bring something that is like a impossibility to make it possible. And we just need to believe, and we need to like work as if we can do it and figure it out as we go along and not get paralyzed by doubt. My life is either going down this track or I'm like moving to another city and I'm starting a new life somewhere. It's on me to get this done.
Vince called me up and said, do you want to purchase a bowling alley? And I said, no, not particularly. I don't. I mean, I bowled a few times, but it's not a particular passion of mine. And then he told me a little of what he had in mind and invited me to come down and see it.
If you want to go and see the show, you just walk right up this way. There's some hints that something's happened here, something unusual, some break in time.
The Victorian house, lost in time and space, other dimensions, other times, a secret story that you would have to decipher. He was just pushing all my buttons there. He probably knew they were my buttons because I'm a science fiction fantasy guy.
And he's like, well, how much is it going to take to renovate the building? And we're like, it's going to be like $300,000, man, like no big deal.
And I said, where did you get that figure?
A couple weeks later, his contractor comes back with a number that's like 1.8 million to renovate.
And we had to go back to George.
And he's like, what's this? Is this the number down here? And we're like, yeah, the number is $1.8 million. And he just like sits there quietly. It was a desperate plea. It was like, please take a chance on us, like nobody else is going to.
He convinced me, okay, I'll buy the bowling alley. God help me.
So, George R.R. too.
Yeah, so we bought a bowling alley thanks to George R.R. Martin, which is insane. We spent a lot of time building the exhibit within it. So these are some production shots. There's a bus that's cut in half that's inside of it. There's a forest. We'll skip over that.
I think we can all say that from that point to when it opened was nothing like what anyone expected it to be, right? Oh, great, we got the money. We can do anything we want now, right? Because when this group started, they had nothing, no money, everything. Everyone was working like 3 jobs. They build, if you see the film, before they get the opportunity to build their first permanent exhibition, they build an entire ship inside of a contemporary art gallery gallery in Santa Fe that's, I think, 6,000 square feet. And they end up shocking themselves with a donation suggestion of $10 and making $125,000. So all of that was done with nothing. Oh, Cloud wants me to narrate what's happening. What happened to build this house was just leagues and leagues above what anybody who was a part of this group. These are amateurs, these are artists, nobody had any contracting background, and then suddenly they're dealing with city regulators, they're dealing with multi-million-dollar electrical codes, and I mean, I'm exaggerating with the multi-millions.
But I mean, ultimately we got to a point where there's been 1.5 million participants who have come through this space, which is insane. It's spring break right now, so there's lines around the block. But there's some people who look to us and call us big, fun art, which is, this guy, Ben Davis, he's a art critic from ArtNet News. So we need a name for it. As a style, it's poppy and media savvy, but it's not pop or new media art. I'm going to propose calling what it is big fun art. And I don't blame him. I mean, I feel like we've also been called artainment, and I think that's a more accurate name for it because I think the art that we make can be entertaining, but it's also artful as well, too. Oh, this dude, which I won't name, is our editor-in-chief of he's an art critic futurist who says, does anyone accept the tourists and selfie takers like Meow Wolf? And he posted a piece about our new location, and I think that he's hypercritical because it's not deep enough, and well, we can let people decide for that.
I think there's some valid things that come up in these articles, though, right? That regardless of how we might individually feel about art, what's come around to this is the question of, is this art or not? And that's a personal question to answer, but I think from the perspective of our intention as Meow Wolf is that, that is so diminishing to say what is art and what is not.
Well, and Alex Gray, who is an art visionary, by bringing Meow Wolf into a fine art context and defining the work as a cultural gesture worthy of investigation, it acknowledges the artists who have been laboring unseen to bring something new forward. Burning Man is another great success outside the normal art world. Why? And this other dude also has some thoughts about art.
Yes, I think better than I could articulate or Cloud. Here's a perspective on what is art and what is not.
I'm in favor of a very broad definition of art. I mean, I am an artist, my sense, in that I'm a writer, And as a writer primarily of science fiction and fantasy, all my life I've encountered the people who want to draw lines and barriers between high culture and low culture and say, well, it's all right, these science fiction people, but it's not literature. It's not literature, it's just stories or something like that. Mystery stories, oh no, that's not literature either. That's not art. Well, of course it's art. That's not to say it's necessarily great. I mean, that's a verdict for the ages to decide. What are we going to be reading 100 years from now? What are we going to be reading 200 years from now? I remember at the Guardian newspaper, I believe it was in England, maybe it was the Times, one of the big British newspapers ran a poll of their readers on the greatest novel, the greatest English novel of the 20th century. And Lord of the Rings won. And the heads of the literary establishment all over England exploded because Tolkien is not accepted into the literary establishment. How could Tolkien come out ahead of E.M. Forster and James Joyce and Graham Greene, Kingsley Amis, you name it. But no, it was J.R.R. Tolkien that was #1. Well, it was just the people. There was a popular taste. It's not art. It shouldn't even be allowed in a competition, And I've encountered that attitude all my life. And it's breaking down now, finally. Popular art and popular writing and classical art and all that, it's all part of the same continuity. They're all expressions of human creativity, and they're all made for ultimately for us to enjoy. Yeah, we make these pompous statement, art is made to educate us and provoke us and all that, but ultimately we enjoy it, you know. Why does everybody always need something to look down and say, well, that's not art, you know, that's not like what I'm doing. What I'm doing is really magical and worthwhile. I mean, it's the kind of bullshit elitism that I think doesn't do anybody any good. We don't need to draw these stupid boundaries.
Shout out to George R.R. Martin for talking the real talk and for also buying a bowling alley for us. So we're going to touch on transformation. I think transformation means a lot of things for us. One, it means about participants who go through our experiences, but also transformation for us as a company.
That's like the transformative moment that people have when they open the fridge. When they open the fridge and they realize they can go through it, it's now something that is radically different than what they thought it was, which means that the world can be radically different than what they thought the world could be. But most importantly, it's that they can now be radically different than what they thought they could be. When you have a transformative moment and you break down the nature of reality for someone, it actually opens up the possibility of who they can be in the world. And that's like radical for people because they get to be free of the past that was handed to them. The hope is that like Meow Wolf or artists in general, storytellers, create imaginative experiences for consumers, that hopefully those experiences trigger the creative self, shakes it loose from its slumber. We're bringing forth the imagination into the world. We did that physically, but soon it's going to be an entire layer built on top of the existing reality that we won't even reference as separate anymore. It'll just be that layer that we live with every day, you know, and instead of it's in our pockets, it's just a part of life all the time. Think of like all the real estate in the entire world, every square footage, every acreage is a canvas. Everywhere you go is a stage. Everyone you talk to is a performer. And the creative layer of life becomes accessible all the time.
So what we talk about here is sort of this accessible unknown. So many of us, of course, looking for a late night snack or coming home after school, we open the fridge and we see if there's applesauce or a string cheese. But at Meow Wolf in Santa Fe, there's a portal to a new world. And what Vince was alluding to is the fact that this transformational moment that you can change in our experiences. Wow, so let's talk about the future, about transformation of Meow Wolf as a company. So our next project, which is opening next month already, is a theme park ride. How insane is that? Watch this video.
Kaleidoscape is a ride that takes you on a voyage from minimal to maximal and back again. For us to find ourselves doing our second permanent installation in an amusement park is amazing and like totally unexpected, but somehow like really fitting. This project definitely represents an innovation in theme parks in general, and by Meow Wolf and Elitch collaborating on this, I hope that this sparks a rethinking of like, oh, what can a ride be? If you go to Meow Wolf, you might spend like 2 or 3 hours in there, like trying to see everything. But here it's like we have under 3 minutes to bend your mind completely. Kaleidoscape is a low poly video game meets a yard sale in the 5th dimension.
And a big thing for us is really injecting art in the places that people might not stumble upon. I mean, we fondly believe that theme park rides are art, but this is literally an art ride where you're sitting on a car for 3 minutes. And I'll give you a little sneak peek that it's not public yet, but there's these, I sound like a crazy person, but there's these glomatrons that you have that you create life with as you kind of proceed, and it goes from minimal to maximal and back again. After Kaleidoscape, we're aiming to open Meow Wolf Las Vegas, which is nuts, outside the Strip by the end of this year. We're going to be in this immersive bazaar called Area 15, which is a brand new type of artainment center. Then after Vegas, we're aiming to open Meow Wolf Denver, just outside downtown Denver. This is a 5-story building. We just got our cranes on site just last month. And I think the thing that's fascinating about Denver and Vegas and all our future experiences is that what Vince was alluding to earlier about having this layer on top of the experience. So imagine, you go to an art show, but then you're given these AR goggles that you put on over your eyes, and you can take in the art in a whole different way, a new form of storytelling. So a couple of things to touch on with that project. One is very collaborative nature, tech, storytelling coming together. 2, we also collaborate with other people outside of our own organization. That's something that we do a lot of. And 3, that's a sort of a sneak peek, but that thing you saw, the mech and this cathedral are connected. I can't tell you how because I signed an NDA when I joined the company, so I really can't say anything about that, but you'll come to Denver in 2 years and find out. This is our future location in Washington, D.C. We're opening a 60,000 square foot immersive experience in 2022. And just last month, we announced a 75,000 square foot immersive experience in Phoenix. It's also going to have a 1,000-person concert venue and a 400-room hotel, which is nuts. And it's kind of awesome because the rooms will be designed by local artists, and there'll also be a mixture of rooms from hostel style to glamping to luxurious suites. So as we're kind of foreshadowing, we're definitely growing as a company. I wish I could tell you more about what we're building. Me and Morgan both have NDAs, we could lose our jobs. But let's just say I feel like we're really gonna expand more upon artainment, and we're gonna explore things potentially like TV shows, movies, books, comics, and we just are much more than the place in Santa Fe. So this video reel from last year kind of highlights that. Yeah, so the beast is alive and well. I mean, that's a snapshot of all the things that we've been working on and continue to work on.
We just did like a vomit at you guys of there's so many facets to this story, to this organism that is continuing to grow and evolve. But for me, as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, ultimately, I think, you know, before we go into the Q&A, like a parting thing for me is that this has changed my life. I was never involved in immersive arts. I was barely a physical artist, right? I was just there helping sweep and mold things. I'm a storyteller, but this has expanded, this has completely shattered my understanding of what I'm capable of and how powerful it is for us to hold on to our dreams. I know it sounds cheesy. I am the first person to say, but I think that what is so powerful about this, not just the ability to transform people, but it's more the ability for us to see within ourselves that if we don't try, nothing is possible, and that the journey is worthwhile regardless of what happens. This might still fail. You know, it's a multi-million-dollar corporation now.
It's very true.
But it might still fail, but that it got this far is empowering. It is empowering to me as an individual, and I hope it is empowering to the people sitting in this room, because if you care enough, you also then don't ever not try. It's just that you have to try. If you have this impulse, this part of you that you know is not going to be satisfied if you don't explore, then just fucking do it, because it can happen.
That's so true. I mean, I have a talk I give called Just Fucking Do It, and I think if you get one thing from listening to us ramble today, if you have dreams, you have ideas, if you have art that you want to make, go do it. Go find space. Go find friends. Go get out there, because it is possible, and we just want you to hear that. So thank you for your time. Thank you, Penny Stamps. We got Q&A after this.
See the movie, please.
So ask us questions, please.
Please see them. It's playing tomorrow night at midnight, but it's we would love for you to all watch it who came here tonight. Thank you, guys.
There's a Q&A if you guys want to ask questions.
Should we go to the other side?
Yeah.
Nobody has any.
If you don't want to ask questions, you can come to the mics.
Oh, we got a question.
Hello?
What's your question?
Hi, so I got like three-parter.
Three-parter.
All right, so I took notes. How do you balance the input of 400 people?
Balance the what of 400 people?
Input, like creative input of 400 people.
Here's the deal. I'm going to go in the lobby. Morgan's going to go in the lobby. We're going to talk to people in person.
Oh.
We want to talk to people. We want to meet you all. And so we're going to come out and come meet you.
I don't think we're allowed to do that. I'll answer your question. Look, that's how you manage 400 people.
Exactly.
You disagree until you agree.
I'll be in the lobby to say hi to everybody.
There's a lot of personalities, and I think that's sort of the challenge, right? And that's what makes us better at our art, is the compromises that we have to make, which a lot of artists, we go on. This is really funny. I hope someone Instagrams me.
And I guess another part is how to balance being a corporation and also bringing in that original creative DIY spirit.
I think that's sort of still what's the biggest question now, is that to grow, to continue to be disruptive, that meant becoming the institution in some ways, right? So Meow Wolf now is the institution. They're the fucking man, right? And we fight about that a lot, but I think there's a lot of trust that we have to take in the integrity that we have in this thing. I'm still watching very closely, and if you see the film, I hope that you leave with the question of, can this work? Can this creative integrity be maintained while also creating profit?
Hopefully, yes. Just kidding.
Yeah, hopefully, yes.
Profit to move forward and do more projects.
Exactly, and to employ more artists, and that's something we didn't really mention, is that the intention behind expanding this and growing so fast is that by doing that, I'm a salaried documentary filmmaker, which I'm the only one of those I know, besides Jolanne. And so that's changing the nature of what we're able to do as creatives. If we're creating these entities that can provide salaries and fucking health insurance to artists, then we're changing the creative economy.
Well, and ultimately, too, we want to be the world's largest employer of artists in the next 10 years. That's our goal. Nice. And I mean that when I say that. So we want to employ a whole world full of artists.
Nice. And then finally, I'll be out of here. We want to do a collaboration in Vancouver, BC. I'm a part of an animation collective. And
we're always down for collaborations. So much so that we have a form on our website that we literally get probably like 3 requests for collabs. We would look at them all, we evaluate them all.
But you're requesting straight to our face, so.
Yeah, here I am.
I shouldn't have said that on the microphone.
All right.
Hey, you guys, hang on one second. For guys that are still in this theater that are leaving, please don't talk so people that are staying for the Q&A can actually ask their questions and hear themselves. Thank you. Just a little theater etiquette.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Yeah, find us.
Look over there.
Hey.
Hi. Oh, okay, good. So you guys talked about a lot of different types of creators, but I noticed kind of a glaring omission of chefs or anyone that makes any scent or taste-based food. Is there a space for that, and where is it?
Yeah, there was a space. We had a food truck for a little bit called Trinity Kitchen, but we're definitely looking for more.
Answer is not enough.
The answer's not enough, and that for future locations, we're definitely going to explore culinary endeavors. Including a ramen shop. I said too much, I might get fired.
Just shout out that, yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because creativity, artistry is not just fucking paintings and sculptures and movies. It's you know, taste and food and all of these things. And that's what this is supposed to be. It's supposed to be accessing creativity at literally every fucking level. So thanks for asking that.
Thank you so much.
Hello. I have to go, but he has a question. I'm Rebecca. I just wanted to say hi to you.
Rebecca! Yes. Thank you. Yes. And Rebecca's the best, guys.
Thank you. I'll be there tomorrow, okay?
You are.
Yes.
You are.
Hi, so I'm an art student at the university. A couple of years ago, I worked for an internship of a company that was kind of similar to Meow Wolf called Redwood Engineering Theater in Chicago. The year that after the Fire Festival, after I worked there, they went out of business. And I'm just kind of curious, like, how are you guys able to either generate revenue or generate donations to stay open, especially with these like large caliber projects? It seems like you're kind of starting to skew towards revenue.
Well, that's a great question. So the question, to restate it so people could hear, is how do we plan to stay open when we have a lot of revenue generating projects? I think for us, you know, when we explore new cities, we try to find the right sort of business partner to sort of to collaborate with. And so, for example, in the Washington location, we're collaborating with a foundation, a nonprofit foundation in Phoenix. We're collaborating with a hospitality group. So for us, it sort of allows us to sort of, you know, have them also take on some of the risk for our art, but then ultimately we think that the payoff will be big enough. And then I think another to kind of answer your question, I think as far as revenue is that we're really trying to think beyond the location-based experiences, you know, so we're trying to think about how art can also be accessible through like books, TV shows, movies, apps, you know, and all that kind of stuff too.
But
so
most directly, it's admission-based profit.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello there.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi.
I just wrote a few things down, so I'll read off my phone. First off, you guys had an awesome presentation. I just want to say that.
Thank you.
I think the dynamic between you guys is like super cool, and you guys brought it in together. I just wanted to acknowledge both of you for that, because that's.
Thank you.
Thank you. We really needed to hear that. I might cry later. I'm not sure yet.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you can cry in front of us. I'm sure everyone will appreciate that. But yeah, it was hilarious. Just kind of watching you guys clash. But you guys came out on top, and I really appreciated your collaboration. And it was kind of embodying of what you guys were talking about. So it was like, this is real. Like,
yeah, I just want to say all that was planned. We just were all acting the whole time. Just kidding. But I appreciate you noticing the fact that the tension and the collaboration that we were talking about also translated to the stage as well.
Yeah. So on to my question. As an organization, like I noticed, well, you kind of touched on it earlier about saying, you know, it's cool that there'll be a platform or there'll be a way that artists get health insurance, which is amazing, and kind of the positive benefits of scaling to something that is so big that it is. Do you guys have any conversations about the scalability and losing the initial message about what Meow Wolf is about? Because like, it was crazy. Like, my mind was bending, I should say. My mind was blowing when I was like, "Whoa, this
bending,
place,
yeah,
this place,
you got
this
it. You
place."
picked up on it.
Yeah. So it was just kind of surprising to see all the places. So my question to you is, do you guys have conversations about the scalability of Meow Wolf, and has the message changed with the business aspect being introduced? And yeah.
I love your question. Yes, the short answer is yes, everything has changed because the nature of it has changed, right? There is money. This started as a group of volunteers, elective artists who are deciding what they're making, and that's a lot different than a corporation who's selecting the people that work for it. And that brings a lot of social questions into this thing, especially when you're coming from a place of art making that is intending to be true to the craft and the intention and the creativity. I personally have a question, and this is where I really appreciate you enjoying Cloud and I's dynamic, because we do get along really smashingly, honestly, but we both have such sort of at once very similar and fundamentally different philosophies about this thing, which I think is a beautiful example of what it is. Sure. I do have a question. I think it's very scalable as a business model. Is it scalable for an individual artist? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. How much am I going to, or Cloud going to evolve in this company as individual artists, as a filmmaker, as a painter, as a sculptor? Hopefully the answer is immensely. But at the same time, this is still an experiment. This is still one more time of a group of people having the audacity to say, oh, we can do this. And honestly, the answer, like, for me, I'm fascinated to see how it plays out, because I don't know.
I mean, the other side of it is that I really truly believe that what Meow Wolf is doing is so unique and so one of a kind. I've never seen anything like this before. Just the experience, the company, the ethos that we have. And so I think that, like, us challenging the status quo and trying to change what art can be, what entertainment can be, will ultimately allow us to be a scalable business and to really grow. And I think as far as scalable artists, I think that the one thing that I have struggled with as a personal thing is, you know, working a full-time job and trying, or a part-time job and trying to make art on the side. And when you have a guaranteed paycheck, it does allow you some freedom and privilege to make art on the side and kind of grow your craft. So there's a double side of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of opinions around this whole thing that are all valid.
Thank you for your questions.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming. I'm a VJ and a visual artist here at school and in the Detroit area. Music festivals are a huge part of my life, and I've known about Meow Wolf for a couple of years, so it's really awesome to see you guys here. Yeah, so like just as a VJ and seeing your presentation and knowing how you're bringing that kind of new media art into this space, like, I guess, what is kind of like, what's the new frontier of that, especially with like new media and digital art? You know, myself and several of my friends in the audience were like, we want to apply, like, and what you're looking for, you know, and just things like that, and how I can grow in my art form like that, and so on? Because as you say, now you're selecting who can be in Meow Wolf.
Yeah, and I think that I also VJ sometimes. I use VDMX, and we have a lot of people who use Resolume in the house.
I use Resolume and VDMX, synesthesia. I animate C4D, all that.
Yeah, so we have a lot of we have a lot of people who do sort of a visual layer through that sort of thing, and I think that ultimately, we have I probably shouldn't say this, but the Las Vegas exhibit will be very new media heavy.
With the dome, right?
Was that?
With the dome?
That's Denver. The one in Vegas, we built it.
Should we give these nice people a little secret?
Maybe it depends on the secret.
Klaud's going to get me in trouble because he's the brand person, but I want to reward you guys.
Well, tell me what it is first.
Something about the narrative in Vegas.
No.
We can't do that.
Sorry.
But I wanted to. Just remember that.
But ultimately, there's going to be a lot of space for new media art. And I think that what we're trying to do, too, is be able to bring those experiences on the road as well. So I think that there's that. And then, we have a festival, or I shouldn't call it, sorry, my bad, it's not a festival, it's a weekend experience with 3 nights and bands, and there's lots of VJing there too. So, definitely we have this is a good time to bring us up. We have a form on our website that's called Get Involved, and it's really meant for people to get involved. It's getinvolved.meowwolf.com. So if you're interested in sort of throwing your name in a hat, please do.
And just to follow up on that in a broader sense, I know now that Meow Wolf has determined there's words, there's language around all of these things now. I think something we were reading earlier, for immersive experiences, what Meow Wolf is looking for in proposals is it expectation, hook, and...
Experience, hook, and discovery.
Discovery. So with each thing, what is the experience?
I don't want to.
We're not making physical making artists.
But I think ultimately, the one thing I will say is that the thing that's really changed in the past 10 to 15 years is that we own the means of production now. That's something that's way different than the society that was before. And I think that we are VJs, videographers, photographers, we're able to own cameras and computers and software to make our art. So please keep doing it, because we actually have that power now.
And if you don't have that, if you don't have technology, camera software, it is about this. Ultimately, all the work comes back to subversion, right? To challenging people's expectation of what reality is, and in any work that we put out, asks the viewer to think differently, think larger about everything.
Follow up?
Yeah, just a little thing. Thank you. Is there going to be a Meow Wolf curated festival ever?
The possibilities are endless. I can't confirm or deny that, but I feel like it's definitely, we're exploring lots of stuff. I'll say that.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm a junior here. I'm studying creative writing and communications. My cousin actually works for Meow Wolf, so I went and visited.
Who's your cousin?
Stephanie Kitts.
Oh yeah, she's great. We love her.
Yeah, she's
love
great.
her.
Yeah.
We love her.
I just took a picture of her last week when she was a control wolf at the house.
She's been around for a while.
Yeah, so
she's up. She was in some of those photos.
Yeah,
I don't know if you knew that.
Outfit.
We're losing people on this. Go on.
So I went over spring break this year, and when I came back, I studied communications and writing, but I didn't really know how to describe it. So my question for you is, as marketing director, how do you actually put into words what this experience is in a way that gets people interested, but not giving too much away? Because obviously I didn't want to give away any secrets, or there is this secret storyline running through. How do you, as storytellers, tell a story that you don't really know about until you get there?
That's a really great question. So how can I say this? The exhibit in Santa Fe has this underlying story about this family that had an event that happened on March 16th, 2016, where the house was transported from Mendocino, California to Santa Fe, New Mexico, inside this bowling alley. We don't tell our participants this. We don't go out there and say, hey, look in the mailbox. Hey, turn on the TV. And so for us, a lot of it is 3 things. And Morgan was alluding to this earlier. It's 3 different things, kind of similar, but choice. So giving people the choice to actually roam in the space and sort of choose the path they go on. Agency, so really allowing people to kind of open things and go through drawers and look through books and turn on the TV and flick through the channels, and then ultimately discovery. And so I think for us, there's this tension, right, between narrative and marketing, and how we sort of a lot of people on our Instagram feed, for example, just want to see pretty pictures of art. You know, it's a very visual nature. Our narrative stuff doesn't really play out that well, but we're starting to sort of think about how we plant seeds around and let sort of people, even like not in the exhibit, but online and through social and all these other things, and sort of ultimately, it's hard ultimately to describe like the experience, and really we want people to kind of come in and you really have to see it for yourself. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I mean, like, generally getting people to come to the exhibit, like, in running marketing things, I was wondering, like, how far do you have to go to reveal what it is in order to kind of get people interested?
You know, really not that far. I mean, I think the thing that was, you know, when the co-founders and you were kind of around during that time, they had no clue how many people were going to come. They thought maybe, okay, in like 3 years, 300,000, 400,000 people will come through. And that happened in the first year. And I think because you know, the experience is so magical that people really want to rant and rave about it. I just saw someone on social media who was like, oh, I asked someone once a day, like, have you heard of Meow Wolf?
I honestly think it's word of mouth. I think Cloud is super good at his job and has gone a lot. I think word of mouth is so powerful, though, especially when it comes to like experiences.
But ultimately, too, you have to use, I think there's a mixture of different types of storytelling. So, for example, when we did upgrades, we do upgrades every year. We did narrative upgrades, and we also did like artist upgrades, and we tell that sort of stuff through, you know, mini documentaries, articles. We use our sort of like places to sort of broadcast and elevate that. So I think that really it's kind of using the tools that you have, whether it's social media, your own media, or even earned media, to sort of help amplify the messages. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, great presentation. How do you embrace technology? Are some of those 400 people technologists that help you make everything work? Is that it? Or do you have outside help to do that kind of thing?
So that's what's different now, right? So I think somebody else had asked, how is it? It's admission-based, but the company now has had a lot of outside investments. And so because of that, we've been able to not just like access friends who can do it for cheap, but we have been able to hire some of the best people in the field technologically to help design and build what's coming in these next exhibitions. Yeah, that is huge.
We have a huge tech team who is actually like building all the technology behind the experiences. We also have a digital storytelling team who's thinking about how digital can interweave with the experiences as well too. So, you know, really sort of we've always been fascinated with technology, and now I think we're starting to lean into it more. And I also think, I don't want to talk about the D company, but sometimes I do. It's Disney, and people compare us to Disneyland and talk about Disney, but I think that Meow Wolf was born out of this weird moment. You know, 2008, Obama was running for president, the recession has happened, and we had to be scrappy. We had to, gather around what we had, and part of what we had was technology. A lot of us are digital natives who grew up with computers, and so since 2011 with the due return, technology has been a big part of our storytelling.
Hi. Hello? Oh, I'm curious about how you came up with the name Meow Wolf, and also just the aesthetic of the logo and the color scheme and that kind of stuff.
Well, the name, I can tell you, there's a scene in the film that is animated. These 10 kids, like I'm calling them kids now, like that it was that long ago. It was. They threw a bunch of words into a hat and passed the name around the circle and drew names from the hat and voted on word combinations. So it was almost like Vibe Hut, like I ship, Vibe Hut. Oh, I already said that. So it was like very democratic, and everyone was like, Meow Wolf, that's really lame, like that's not gonna stick, but here we are.
It did, and then the answer about the logo and the design. So Emily Montoya, who was in the Kaleidoscope video, also was in the earlier parts, she's one of the co-founders. She has really sort of like made the visual identity of Meow Wolf. So she's the creator behind the logo, the creator behind this little creature over here called Snaggy, and is now currently the senior vice president of brand. So really it's her strong design ethic and her ethos. And like, I just want to gush about her real quick because like she is one of the most incredible artists I've ever like come across. I worked at an art museum that did contemporary art for a while, and like literally like her mind, the way it works is like I've never seen it before, and she really is a big part of the creativity that we all kind of harness.
Hi. I was wondering, this question is mainly for Chris. When you were developing the brand and the language around Meow Wolf, did you have like examples that you were looking to develop this language and like sort of more corporate presentation, or were you like, we're doing something totally different, there's no point in even like sort of looking at other things? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's the tension, right? It's sort of the vibe of like, you know, do we look at the past to define who we are, or do we sort of create our own path? And I think there's a strong way about language we talk about this. So at Disneyland, you're a guest. And at the DIA, did I say it right? DIA, the museum in Detroit, you're a visitor. Mm-hmm. But at Meow Wolf, you're a participant. Mm-hmm. And you're active in that experience. And so when we are on social media and we're thanking people for coming, we're not saying thank you for visiting, we're saying thank you for participating. So it is sort of a reinvention of how we think the world can be, just like the art we make.
Thanks.
Hi. Through everything we saw, and I'll be explicit, so you're the only person we've seen who's been a person of color. So I'm curious about why this is really just, it seems like a big group of hip white kids.
You don't think the one token black person is enough? Are you sure?
But more explicitly, let me get to the next key point, which is what proactive steps are you doing to try to reach the indigenous, to reach, say, the indigenous community in Santa Fe, to reach more than a group of, white kids?
Well, that's a valid question. I mean,
question. Thank you for asking.
1 second here. We were sort of in a time crunch earlier, but I have this 42-second clip, so I'm just going to play it real quick. Thank you. Can we get some sound? Is that possible still?
I'm a writer, co-director, and I also acted in the Umbra project. And I'm from Dallas, Texas, but I currently reside in Brooklyn, New York.
My name is Hakeem Anwumi, and I am from Dallas, Texas.
Meow Wolf reached out and said they wanted to work on an Afrofuturist project.
And Tyler called me up and was like, hey, I have this opportunity that you may be interested in. I'm going to join this thing with Meow Wolf. I'm like, what the hell is that?
We realized that the main focus of the house was the rip in the multiverse. So that's how Hakeem and I came up with this idea of the Umbra sisters who are going to travel back in time to sort of suss out what's happened and try to save the planet as they know it.
3, 2, 1, action.
So, being in Santa Fe now, living there, it's a very indigenous. There's also a lot of Latinx people, but it's also very white. Like, I'm surprised when I see a black person, like, at the gas station. I'm like, oh, you're black too. And so I think ultimately, like, when the organization started, it was like really the mixture of people who were in the community. But I think ultimately, as a company, we're trying to be radically inclusive and really bring in more voices and work with more artists. And to your point about the indigenous community, that's also something that we're doing too. So 2 of the newest upgrade artists were both members of the indigenous community in New Mexico, and we're also collaborating with the Indigenous Comic-Con as well to help sort of elevate them. So good question.
And it's definitely a very frequent topic of conversation in the company right now. I would say one of the most. And I'm really
one of the most important.
Exactly. Meow Wolf is not happy with its makeup right now. None of us are happy with that. And so I appreciate you asking that question because I think it's very indicative of a lot of startups.
I think this is the last question.
Uh-oh. So I'm always curious. I help run some makerspaces, hackerspaces. Maintenance is difficult. So I'm curious, how does a place like the House of Eternal Return deal with maintenance with the level of knowledge and technology, just madness that you guys have going on there?
So we're open on Monday, and we're open Wednesday through Sunday, and we're closed Tuesdays for that very reason of just sort of being able to upkeep all the things. And then we also have a cleaning crew that comes in every morning, cleaning and maintenance crew that comes in every morning from 6 a.m. till 10 a.m. when we open to sort of like spruce up everything else. And then ultimately, there's maintenance, what was I going to say, maintenance?
It wasn't always smooth like that. I was involved with the group for a long time. I was a docent before I was directing the film.
Working the house.
And yeah, meaning I was like cleaning up, like if somebody like literally like peed in there. And so when it first opened, they were like, what? We have to operate this thing now? What? And it was a mess. And we were all drinking at work, and it was terrible. And it only lasted for a couple weeks. And then, you know, there's the realization, oh, this isn't just our warehouse anymore. This is a business, and it needs to run like that. And so that was a huge learning curve after it opened as well.
And then the thing that kind of piggybacks on that is the fact that we're really limited to safety codes and materials, so we're there's only a few things that we can use, so it kind of makes it cleaning easier and maintenance. So, any last questions? One more.
Hi. So I was wondering about materials, and like I know at the beginning you were working with a lot of found materials because of like money. So I'm wondering if like now you work mostly with found materials, or if you get things like custom made. Yeah.
Combo of answers to that, yes and yes. For the House of Eternal Return, there's this material called Scratch that Meow Wolf actually ended up, I think they licensed it, which is like a paper-based material. All the caves, everything hardened is made of this. I encourage you to look into it. It's with a K. It's this sculpting material. And Instamorph, which is basically melted plastic, were these sort of, you know, cheapish, scrappy materials that were really used in the house, and you know, they had to learn about like fire codes and all of that, and so that sort of changed. But now, literally don't know what materials they're using.
Well, and it's sort of because of the safety codes, and because the thing that's really fascinating about expanding beyond Santa Fe is that each different city has a different set of codes. So now we're really thinking about what are the key materials that we can use and build upon. I think we might have time for one more question.
Environmentally, though, that's
hey, Morgan,
a good question.
Yeah, I'm wondering how is Meow Wolf administrated? Is there a CEO?
Yeah, this is a guy talking. CEO. His name is Vince Catlubeck, so he's a CEO. We also have a CFO. We have a chief content officer. We're about to hire a chief creative officer. The structure is very new. It's something about that order and chaos, right? Where it's sort of, you know, it was very chaotic.
People.
And right now, I guess I can be a little bit honest, and since you're only a few people here, but this is our first time we're going through performance reviews. So at a normal company, you could get reviews, but for the company, it's sort of weird to be like, we gotta review each other now?
I reviewed myself, I think, too high. I said like outstanding on everything.
And you were outstanding tonight, so thank you, everybody.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate you all.